Let me have a moment here to ask you a question. If you're ill, very ill, would you initiate some sort of action to return to wellness? Would you go to the doctor? Would you get medicine? Would you get plenty of rest? Would you drink a lot of liquids? Or all of the above? Would you do something to return to a state of wellness? The obvious question is yes. Why remain in a state of ill feeling if you don't have to? Well, if your life is full of worry and stress and anxiety, if you have any resentment or anger, if your relationships have conflict in them, all of those things affect your well-being. So it's only natural, just like with the physical illness, with a mental, emotional, spiritual ill feeling of sorts, that we would initiate something that would restore a higher sense of well-being. If you can identify with what I just said, do I have something for you? This is a deal. You can have lower stress and worry. You can have higher levels of well-being. You can have more harmony in your relationships. You can have more love in your life. You can be a happier person. Now, I know it's beginning to sound a bit like a sales pitch. But, and normally, people would think this would go for $95 or more. For $29.95, you can get the Miracle Method. If you buy now, you will get free access to the Unity website for the rest of your life. Now, I want you to think about that. But you have to call now, 1-816-994-8000. Call now for the Miracle Method and free access to the Unity website. Of course, you know I'm joking. Don't you? Is anybody new here for the first time? Well, actually, there is a Miracle Method. And the Miracle Method is free. It's something that you have. It's something that you can increase your ability in tapping into, and it's called mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is kind of a trendy word these days, but it's been around for a long, long time. Many of you in here probably are practicing it now. But the whole point is to be present in whatever's going on in front of you at any given time. The opposite is mindlessness. And that means being someplace, doing something, but your mind is someplace else, usually fretting about something in the past or fidgeting about something in the future. And so mindfulness is where our lives happen. To live means to be alive. To alive means to be engaged with that which is live, which is right here, right now. Yesterday and the past are nothing more than figments of our imagination or our memory. So I'm going to talk a little bit about mindfulness today, and I'm going to ask you to commit to something. It's 21 days. It's very similar to what Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey did a few months ago. It's a 21-day program where you just take 10 minutes a day to do a mindful meditation, and I can guarantee you that at the end of 21 days, you'll see subtle little differences in yourself and the way you react to things. You'll see changes in your life. You'll see great improvements come about that you've probably missed for a long time. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce to you Millie Edwards. What are you going to sing for us today?
I can see clearly now.
You can see clearly now?
Yes.
Good. And what does that song mean to you?
Looking at life in a positive way, feeling uplifted, knowing that sometimes it's going to be stormy in Kansas City and cloudy, and maybe even in my life, but looking for hope and things that are positive to make me want to get up every day.
Perfect. Let's hear it.
Is it okay if I say?
Yes.
I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles are in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Well, now, I would say that most of us were totally engaged in the last 3 minutes when Millie was singing that song, that we were fully absorbed by the present moment, Most of us were not thinking about problems or challenges that we might have. We weren't thinking about conflicts that have happened with other people. We weren't thinking about any worries or any fears or any anxieties or what might happen in the future. She had us right there. She captured our attention, and we did not want her to let go. Is that not right? Yes. Right. That is mindfulness. Mindfulness is when our mind is full, when our mind is filled with what's going on before us in any given moment. Whether it's a pleasant experience, unpleasant experience, hard, difficult, arduous experience, easy, pleasurable experience, it doesn't make any difference. But if we're engaged in it, our mind is full of what is going on, and that is life before us at any given moment. Now, research at the University of Harvard has shown that on the average, 47% of our time is spent outside the present moment. That is because when the mind is not directed, it will wander. And it wanders into one or two places. It wanders into the past or it wanders into the future. And the present moment is missed. A perfect example of this. I got to work Monday morning. I pulled up my Facebook page. One of my friends had posted pictures of a Bradford pear tree. He said, they're in blossom and they will be for 2 weeks. Don't miss them. And the tree on the front of the screen looked so beautiful, and it was taken on the plaza. So I went out to see if I could see the tree from the front door, and sure enough, the street was lined with them. We have one on our own property. Now the point is, 45 minutes earlier, I drove down that street, and I didn't see a single tree that I can remember. It didn't impress me. It didn't impact me because my mind wasn't in the present with all the beauty and all the wonder and all the joy. My mind was off someplace else, probably worrying about what am I going to do when I get to work, or I've got a meeting with so-and-so and that's going to be uncomfortable. I was outside the present moment and I missed it. I totally missed it. Then when I got out of my car and walked down to the front door like I do every single day, I didn't notice the spring buds that were starting to come out. I didn't notice the beautiful building and the different architectural designs that go on. I missed that whole stuff because I became so involved in what is happened or what it might happen that I just miss it. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of times in that missing, it's like I'm flipping back into the past, and there is something going on that just churns and churns and churns in my mind. I can't stop it. It just continues to go and go and go, trying to think and think and think and think and think this thing through. And it's not a pleasurable experience. It's not comfortable. It's usually about something I can do nothing about. And it grows. What we think about expands. It grows and it becomes bigger until it occupies my entire mind. And I'm totally ignorant as to what is going on in front of me at the time. Or I'm worried about something that might come up in the future. You know, I dwell on that, and the thoughts begin to churn, and they turn over and over and over. It's a what if, what if, what if, what if that happens? One little what if turns into lots of what ifs, and the ramifications of what could happen just become overwhelming. But the fact of the matter is, right then and there, in that present moment, I have all sorts of things around me to delight me, but I'm missing it. 47%, that's almost half. Half of our lives are not spent living it, but spent off in the past or the future. So this is especially concerning in this day and age because we seem to be losing more and more of the present moment and getting drawn into the past or into the future more and more. Maybe it's because of our culture, maybe it's because of the speed of things, maybe it's because of the demands that are placed on us, I don't know. But if it is shrinking, that is the cause for increased stress and anxiety and fears and depression and all sorts of other things. And the reason for that is when you're totally invested in the present moment like you were with Millie, you're only doing one thing. Whatever it is, once again, if it's a pleasurable experience or an unpleasurable experience, you're doing just one thing, and that's what's in front of you. When you leave the present moment and you go into the past, or you go into the future, and you're worried or regretful or whatever it might be, the mind takes off, and it's like a monkey in a tree. It jumps from one branch to another branch of thought, and pretty soon we have a dozen or 15 things that we're trying to wrestle, all the resentments that come up from the past and all the worries and fears that might come up in the future, and the mind can't do that. It overloads on it. It can't handle all of that activity that is nonsensical. Do you get what I mean? Am I the only one here that experiences this? No, I know you do. You have been there, you have done that. I know, and this goes for every one of you in here, that there has been a time in the past when you have been so angry or so resentful or so feeling chaotic and disorderly that that's all you could think about. It took over your mind. And you try to stop thinking, but you can't. It takes on a life of its own. It's almost like having a toothache. You know, I had a toothache earlier this week, a sore tooth, and for the life of me, I could not stop punching it with my tongue, poking it to see if it still hurt. Why do we do that? Why do we flip back and go over all the things that hurt us or that made us mad or that caused us to suffer in the past? And why do we get in all this anxiety about the future when right before us is the life that we have lived? Now, on the front page of the bulletin, there's a picture of Jesus, and this comes from one of my favorite stories in the Bible. Jesus and the disciples are out in a boat, and a storm comes up. The thunder is booming, the waves are getting high, the disciples are freaking out, and Jesus is laid back, taking it easy in the boat. Well, they get frantic, and they wake him up, and they, Jesus, a big storm is coming. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And Jesus just remains calm, and he stands up. And in the story, it says he calms the storm. There's many different perspectives on why he remained calm. One that comes to mind is he was the only one in the boat that could walk on water. He didn't have that much to fear. And also, I mean, looking at that picture, excuse the expression, but I mean, standing up on the end of the boat, don't you think that's a little overboard? He could have remained seated and said, hey, calm down, guys, it's going to be okay. But this is a story, and it's a story about life. In the story, the storm represents those disturbing, those unsettling, those upsetting situations and circumstances that comes to our lives. In the story, the disciples represent mindlessness. That means they're not involved in the present moment. They're worried. What is going to happen? What is going to happen? They represent the state of mindlessness, and Jesus represents a state of mindfulness. He's totally involved in what's going on. He knows that there's only so much that he can do to prepare himself for whatever storm comes to protect himself and the disciples. And so he just goes with it, but he is right there. And then calming the storm represents that point with each and every one of us at any given time that we can go to and we can move from the disturbing thoughts that rile us up to just a place of peace. You know, there's an old saying that in the deepest part of the ocean, there's a place where the water is always still. The hurricane might strike out on top, and the turbulence might create big waves, but in that special place at the bottom of the sea, it's always still. It's the same thing with each and every one of us. But the thing about it is we have kind of grown away from that. And we're so involved in worry, in fear, in anxiety, and stressed out and trying to keep up with everything that we're missing. We're missing out on the only thing we have, which is the life right before us. So over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to invite you to join with me in a mindful meditation marathon, if that's what you want to call it. It's just taking 10 minutes a day to sit. Now, when I first began to meditate, I paid a lot of money and went to a meditation center, and the person there instructed me, what you're going to do is you're going to get to this point where you're going to be thoughtless. You're going to be conscious, but you're going to suspend all thought. And you're just going to be like hanging out there in this empty space with no thought whatsoever. So I walked away, and they gave me a little word to help me do that. And I would sit down, and the minute I went into the stillness, thoughts would bombard me. They would come from every direction. there would be thoughts that I didn't initiate. There would be thoughts that weren't beneficial to me. There would be thoughts that served absolutely no purpose in my life, but they would come, they'd rain down on me. It's like that monkey jumping from branch to branch to branch. And after a couple of days, I got so frustrated that I began to scream at my mind from inside my mind, "Don't think. Don't you think a word. Not a single word." I failed, and I quit. And now trying to step in and make your mind totally thoughtless after years and years of conditioning is like chasing the wind. It's never going to happen. And I discovered later, that's not the point of meditation. I discovered if I chase the wind, I'm never going to catch it, but if I just sit still and raise my hand, I've got the wind right in the palm of my hand. And that's kind of what meditation is. They say it's very common for people to have 300 thoughts during a 30-minute meditation. That's okay. Some of the masters say if the mind wanders 1,000 times, you bring it back 1,000 times. And that's okay. In mindful meditation, all we do is we just sit in the stillness. And Janet taught me a rhythmic breathing, which is breathing in to the count of 4, pausing for the count of 2, breathing out for the count of 4, pausing for the count of 2, and feeling your breath fill the body, and feeling your breath leave the body. When you're doing that, you're in the present moment. But it's not going to be long before a thought intrudes. And you have no idea what kind of thought it's going to be, but pretty soon you're going to wake up and say, "I'm in the midst of this thought. I'm thinking something." At that point, you need to shift from being the thinker to being the observer, where you just observe the thought in your mind like a cloud going overhead. It comes into your mind, it captures your attention, it goes out of your mind, and you return to your breathing. And what this does is it begins to build our mindfulness, not just for meditation, but when we go about our everyday lives, we become more mindful about what is going on around us. And we become more aware if our mind begins to wander into the past or into the future for reasons that aren't comfortable or unpleasurable. It reminds us, bring the mind back. What's going on here? What's going on now? It's very simple. If you want to go on the internet and look up mindful meditation, you can find some. Sometimes we use a little music in the background, but 10 minutes a day for the next 21 days, and just see what's going to happen. I wish we had time to do one now, but we don't. So I'm going to do a short 2-minute meditation, and I just want you to be aware during this meditation of thoughts that come into your head. They're going to come into your head, so just be aware of them, bless them, and then to return to counting, inhaling to 4, pausing 2, exhaling 4, and pausing 2. Just for a couple minutes. begin to bring yourself back to this time and this place. When you're ready, open your eyes. Adjust the environment around you. And have a sense of knowing that all is well.